good afternoon to Professor Robert. I think that Professor Robert has clearly given the essence of the pitching research framework during his presentation time. But even though he had some technical difficulties, so we can't do anything. But anyhow, Professor Robert clearly mentioned pitching research framework is a kind of starting a conversation, your research idea with your potential supervisor or the peer or interested parties who knows the subject matter well. This major assumption that you're making, you communicate your research idea with someone who knows the subject matter well. So that's why he clearly mentioned it's a 2-page document. It can be go up and down 1,000 words, 1,020% variation. And he clearly developed, very systematically developed this framework. It's starting 4 items. It gives the big picture and 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 is a contribution. Ultimately, each and every paper, you must articulate it through your paper, some kind of a contribution that is most important. From starting point, you have to give a big picture about the idea, it under the 4 items. So once again, I must thanks to Professor Robert because he's a very busy person and he's joining this session. Is a great privilege for us. It's a great honor to us because he's the one who invented this concept to the world, and he has been practicing very voluntarily. He's doing a very voluntarily job, and a lot of HDR students get the benefit. And now I move into the Sri Lankan experiences. Myself as a country coordinator and Professor Atul as an ambassador. Both of us conducted or practiced this concept in the Sri Lankan context under 2 levels of education. The first, we practice at the undergraduates level using the sample of KDU. It was a very excellent event that we get experience, doesn't it, Professor Atul?
Yes, yeah. So, Professor Wasantha, thank you very much. Special thanks to Professor Robert. Actually, despite his busy schedule, actually he, accept this invitation and today participate as a, the resource person. He's the inventor, as you know. He's the inventor of this particular framework. Actually, this framework challenge the novice researchers. If you are in an initial stage, this is a very systematic, methodical framework that you might think that is only 1,000 words, but it is systematically, you need to develop this particular framework where you are going to get a full picture about the research that you are going to conduct. Okay, that's the important thing with regard to this particular framework. So Professor Wasantha and myself, first actually, we conducted this competition in the KDU, Kothala Valley Defense University, with the undergraduate, the research student. They are actually undergraduate, the student required to do the research in group basis. Okay, so their group presentation actually we got and evaluated by the by the international panel of judges and select the winner. So later on in 2022, actually we conduct the National Pitch and Research the competition with the collaboration of PIM National Research Conference. This is the second time. This time we are going to collaborate with ICBM of our university, and this time we are going to conduct our National Pitch and Research competition. Remember, this National Pitch and Research competition, as it's indicated, it's national. It is open for all the universities in Sri Lanka. We have extended our invitation. Now and communicate with coordinators and the research directors of those universities. Probably they will send more HDR student for the next session. Actually, Professor Wasantha and myself, we are going to conduct another session that is Q&A and the information session, and where we will explain how you are going to make your submission and how to register, and all those kind of information we will provide in the information session and the Q&A session. So those sessions together, we are going to have the information and Q&A. But it happened to be, I mean, the date is 21st September. Earlier, we thought it's a good date, but now because of this presidential election, sometime we might change 1 or 2 days. And don't worry, we will let you know as quickly as possible, and when we are going to take the information date. Professor Wasantha, I would like to, I mean, play a video.
Okay, sure.
And show, I mean, the HDR student, I mean, those who are new to this concept, how, I mean, this framework used by the first, we will go with the undergraduate research student, then we will go to the HDR students competition. So, and we'll see how those research students actually touch upon the main area.
Yeah. Okay, so before moving to that, Professor, shall we do another one session before the question and answer, particularly focusing this framework in detail? Shall we do another session before that? No, we can arrange another session for this audience before the question and answer.
Yes, I think.
Okay.
Can you see my screen, Professor Wasantha?
Yes.
Is it audible?
Kudalaval Defense University. Our team members are Rusha Pereira, Hansi Pereira, Inura Kudedigama, and Achinta Tharaka. According to Dias and Eliatambi in 2020, Sri Lankan higher education system is denoted by the traditional education system. This was proven with the difficulties many universities faced during the adaptation of online learning platforms during the recent pandemic. However, according to Smart and Keppel, undergraduates' perception on this transition is quite controversial, as there are both positive and negative responses. While some, such as Weber, argue that e-learning is beneficial as it gives a frameless technological gateway to the world of knowledge, Becker and others in 2013 opposed this. When it comes to Sri Lankan content, with reference to Jayathilaka and Gunawardana's work in 2016, it can be seen that this major debate on the perceptions has not been analyzed sufficiently before switching the education platforms from traditional to online, which has ultimately created a dilemma around the online education. This gives rise to our basic research question. What are the factors?
Okay, now, I mean, those who are, I mean, new to this framework, I mean, you can see how those the research student actually, as I told you, I mean, this is a group research, undergraduate research student actually making their presentation. So start with the big picture, framing the big picture, that is working title. As indicated, it's a working title. It's a dynamic process, as Professor Robert clearly indicated. So they started with the working title, that is Study of Undergraduate Perception on Transition of Learning from On-Campus to Online. Then the basic research question, actually, how they have come up with the basic research question that you can find out, and then the motivation, okay, so on. They clearly use this one and make their presentation. We'll move into the next, I mean,
affecting the undergraduate's perception on online learning and how it can be used to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of online education. Learning is a process which shapes human behavior. The constructivism theory states that learners construct knowledge rather than just passively receive information. Evolutionary theory signifies that a learner should learn to adapt to his environmental changes in order to ensure his survival. And the sociocultural theory explains that a learner's learning experience will be influenced by the social and cultural aspects in his environment. Therefore, this indicates that learning is a multidimensional facet. With the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic and with the sudden shift of learning from on-campus to online, two learning platforms came to light. Thereby, we've selected our key research papers from 3 reputable Scopus indexed journals, which focus on different variables that influence this transition. The first paper has found out that students frequently express frustrations attributable to their lack of skills in self-regulating their learning, including even basic time management issues. And based on this, we've identified individual constraints as a valid variable. The second paper says that instructor quality, prompt feedback, and effective course design significantly impact students' online learning process. And based on this, we've identified course-related constraints as a valid variable. The third paper says that due to unreliable internet access and technology, students have been struggling to participate in digital learning. And based on this, we've identified technological constraints as a valid variable. And therefore, based on these variables, we've developed our entire platform. Moving on to the 3 core aspects of our research. Idea. Paper shows that in developed nations, online education continues to expand fast.
Okay, before moving to this, I mean, if you go to the basic framework of this template, at first one,
4 items.
First 4 items, that is working title, basic research question, key papers, and motivation and puzzle. Actually, when normally this framework suggests the student to, the researchers to select at least 3 key papers. Okay, so and justify how those papers have been selected. Now you see in this particular situation, those research students actually very clearly identify 3 key papers, and they summarize, and those are and they justify why they have selected Scopus rated, and not only that, the journal rating as well as impact factor also they have given within this slide, and which justify the selection of the research papers. Okay, we'll move into the next section.
And Professor Atula, all 4 items of that section highlight the big picture about the research, no?
Yes, yeah. That section actually basically the big picture. Then the normally we call it as idiot guide, that is idea, data, and tool. That particular section, that is the basic building blocks of your research.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move into this section.
Learning, and the number of student enrollments keep increasing as per Cole et al. In 2014. However, according to Gajraj and Hicks, developing countries like Sri Lanka face a lot of drawbacks in e-learning, and Eastman shows that dropout rates are much higher. According to Pokhrel and Chetri in 2021, during COVID-19 pandemic, on-campus learning faced much constraints and therefore had to shift to the virtual platform. Although many researches have been conducted, Chatilka and Gunawardana state that only a very few pay attention to this shift in the local context. Moreover, although Sri Lanka has a highly standardized educational system among other South Asian countries as proven by Lianage in 2014, undergraduates' performance is dropping pertaining to factors such as their reluctance to adapt to changes. Over to you, Inura.
Thank you, Rochelle. Data. According to Stanford and others in 2017 and Herbert in 2018, course delivery constraints have a relationship with perception. Bali and Liu's work in 2018 and Jayatilaka and Gunawardhana's work show that the societal and cultural and perception influence each other. Anderson and Groenland in 2009 shows that the individual constraint have a correlationship with perception. Murtha Prasad and others in 2021 denote an impact of technological constraint on perception. Based on research objectives, research questions, and the review of literature, the conceptual framework has been developed. Accordingly, the independent variables are constraint related to course delivery, societal and cultural, individual and technological constraint, while the dependent variable is the undergraduate's perception. An empirical model has been formulated where y is a vector of perception, x1, x2, x3, and x4 are vectors of constraint 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively. In order to make the data analytical part, the relational hypotheses are developed based on the conceptual framework. Tools. The study is under mixed method of both quantitative and qualitative aspects at Frankel and Wallen in 2009. Next, qualitative research uses judgmental sampling as non-probability sampling and quantitative research uses simple random sampling as probability sampling and boogie. Quantitative data is expected to collect by using a structured questionnaire and qualitative data using in-depth interviews and focus group discussion. In the data analytical part, the quantitative analysis study is to conduct a linear regression model as the empirical model, and IBM SPSS Statistics version 26 is to be used as the statistical software. Analysis comprise of unique, bi, and multivariate analysis. The estimating reliability, validity, sample adequacy, the goodness of fitness, model fit, and parameter are going to be tested. For the qualitative study, thematic analysis approach is going to be used. Moving on to the two key questions of our research.
Okay, now that section, if you move into the next part, I mean, basically this part, that idea, data, and tools, normally we call it as idiot guide. So that section actually research idea and the data and the conceptual framework tool that they are going to employ for the data gathering, analysis, and how they are going to analyze those data are very clearly presented and well supported by the literature. Okay, whenever the student making their presentation, so the idea is well supported by the literature. Okay, so that's how actually they have make their presentation, and finally actually they got the highest mark in their presentation in that particular competition. Okay, we'll go to the next section.
Professor Atula, when we when we go to the next two questions, it's very interesting because it asks what's new, what's the novelty of your research, as well as the second question asks, so what? That is very interesting question. It's very difficult to answer.
Okay, we'll go to those two questions. Very carefully listen how this student actually very nicely
These students are undergraduate students.
Yeah, undergraduate students. Yeah.
Research. What's new? An analysis of cultural, individual, and course-related constraint with reference to the world-renowned theories, Darwin's evolutionary theory, Piaget's constructivism, and Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory will be done. When considering the perception of undergraduates, Lee in 2017 shows that the proposition and opposition is based on the personal thoughts rather than the actual level of ideas, where the evidences show a reluctance to undergo this transition even though the students' achievement is high in online platforms, as said by Satcher and Newman in 2010. So far, this individual constraint has not been evaluated effectively to understand the undergraduate's perception. So what? According to Buri.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see, I mean, very clearly what's new actually. Sometimes moving from on-campus to online learning platform, and there are large number of research on that particular direction, moving from on-campus to online. So, but this particular student bring several theories, evolutionary theory, constructivism, and social cultural, and they try to analyze the issue through new theoretical models. So that is their new concept. So they very clearly they come up with, I mean, as an undergraduate student, they very clearly come up with how they are going to use the theories, theoretical framework, and analyze their issues. Okay, we'll move into so what question.
And OCA in 2017, understanding and clearly analyzing the undergraduate's perception is a vital need of today to provide quality education. This study aims to provide a critical analysis on how the undergraduate's perception has been evaluated with reference to the above-mentioned constraint and how these constraints can be considered to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of online learning with the help of latest statistical data. Understanding these constraints with regard to these theories will lead this to an exceptional research. Moving on to the one bottom line of...
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, they have justified, I mean, to what, why this particular the question, okay? Understanding, clearly analyzing the undergraduate perception. It's a vital need for today's providing quality education, okay? That way, they justify the reason for this particular research. Okay, we'll go to
this
the
to
next
an
section.
exceptional research. Moving on to the one bottom line of our research. The contribution of this research can be taken in three aspects. Theoretical contribution will develop a logic that reconciles predictions from competing theories and help the academia by extending a theory to explain a phenomenon where it has not previously been applied. Methodological contribution will help future researchers to study the research methods and the techniques which we have used throughout our research. Empirical contribution will fill the existing empirical gap and disseminate knowledge as literature. It will help future researchers and educational experts to identify undergraduates' perception and improve online education system far better than today. Other considerations: due to unexpected COVID-19 situation, data is expected to be conducted by an online questionnaire. And this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ladies and
Okay.
Yes, Prof.Wasantha, over to you. Now, I'm sure now you can move into the...
Can you close this one, Professor Atula?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you HDR, particularly the MPhil and PhD level pitching research competition we conducted through the Postgraduate Institute of Management, PIM. So we selected one of the presenter paper that was a very interesting paper, but she's not selected ultimately as a final contestant. But anyhow, this presentation seemed to be very, very attractive. Therefore, I'm selecting this one.
Quality reviewers are coming. Alarm given by the Quality Assurance Center. All files are taken out. Documents are prepared. Staff and students are coached how to respond to reviewers. University gets a new look. But once the review is over, this enthusiasm and documents disappear. Perhaps until the next review. Family experience, isn't it? Reforms are imperative for development and improvement. But millions of funds are wasted on reforms because of symbolic compliance towards reforms. Quality assurance reform in higher education is facing the same destiny. Quality assurance reform was introduced to the higher education sector to make university operations more efficient and improve the quality of university products. Universities are treated as towers of wisdom. They have high moral obligation towards the society. Quality assurance is a morally worthy cause. Then why? Why universities orchestrate symbolic compliance towards quality assurance system? Bromley and Powell, with their paper From Smoke and Mirrors to Walk in the Talk, brings a new outlook to the symbolic compliance behavior towards reforms. Addressing a gap in the literature, they introduces two forms. One is symbolic adoption, that is policy practice decoupling, and other is symbolic implementation, that is means in decoupling. I observe both forms of this symbolic compliance behavior in universities towards quality assurance reform. This paper broadens my outlook on symbolic compliance behavior. Symbolic compliance is considered a disruptive work by the institutional work theory. Dower and Lawrence, based on the institutional work theory introduced by Lawrence and Sudabi, suggest that actors disrupt institutions grounded on their emotions and cognition. This supports my idea of looking at the actor's moral perspective. The third paper introduces a model that describes moral capacities of institutional actors and how it influences their behavior.
So you can.
Therefore, I consider these as three key papers of my study. What motivated me to do this research? It is the surprising behavior of university actors before the review, during the review, and after the review. This is not a tiny isolated problem that I experience only. This problem of symbolic compliance spread across the higher education sector worldwide. Out of 113 research papers I reviewed, 60%, more than 60% either referred to or discussed symbolic compliance as an impediment to achieve quality assurance objectives.
This is a very interesting paper, the research issue that she has examined, because as you know, in the universities, quality assurance process is a mandatory. But she argued this using past research, she argued that is kind of a symbolic requirement, because if we just do this quality assurance process only for the symbolic purposes, nothing get anything from the, as a part of this review process. But you can see once you go her papers, she clearly mentioned how many times that these papers have referred. The citation also mentioned, and also she mentioned some of the theories related with those papers. The three papers she carefully selected for her research. Now continue with the motivational puzzle.
Not in the higher education sector, the other sectors as well. Say it ISO certification or environmental standards or any other public sector reform faces this problem. Symbolic compliance is not an entirely immoral act. Neither it is moral. This stands in between. It is an amoral act. According to Oliver, there are many ways of responding to organizational pressures. Then why? Why university actors, having high moral obligation, choose symbolic compliance as their preferred mode of response? This is a puzzle. Empirical literature recognizes the importance of studying symbolic compliance behavior, but hardly any literature is available that discusses actors' morality along with symbolic compliance. Since I could not find a presentation from the empirical literature, I consulted theories. Neo-institutional theory suggests that organizations ceremonially adopt new structures to gain legitimacy, but decouple structure from practices. This is not sufficient to explain my research problem. Institutional work theory brings actors to the center. They assume actors disrupt institutionalization of new structures when these structures challenges their ideologies and existing norms of the institution. They further say actors disassociate morality from their behavior when engaged in disruptive work. Can it happen? Can it happen in the context of university actors who are intellectuals, who are having moral obligation? Hannah and others introducing theoretical framework of moral maturation and moral cognition capacity gives an answer. They give an answer saying that moral capacities of institutional actors influence how they decide and act when they encounter with moral dilemmas at workplace. Having described the problem theoretically, I want to test whether this theoretical explanation sufficiently explains the empirical reality. Researchers use philosophies. There are many other philosophies like positivism, interpretation, but I underpin my study on critical realism philosophy. According to critical realism philosophy, reality is multiple and stratified into layers. What we see as the performance gap is only the tip of the iceberg. To find the cause behind this performance gap, we have to dig deep into the iceberg. At the actual level, symbolic compliance is located, the problem that creates the performance gap. But as a critical realist, I cannot satisfy myself at this point. I will find root causes. According to critical realism, at the deep end of the iceberg, they call it field level, causal structures and generative mechanisms are activated, producing the problem. Guided by the critical realism philosophy, I will choose multi-method qualitative as my methodological choice. I will case study because this is a complex and context-bound problem, and I want to understand the reality without manipulating the behavior of the actors. There are 14 state universities in Sri Lanka that governs under the same quality assurance principles. Due to the enormity of this case and need of the descriptions, I will select one university as single case, but to add to the rigor of the research, I will select 4 faculties of different disciplines. Then my research strategy is single embedded case. As I said in my methodological choice, the primary mode of data collection is semi-structured in-depth interviews. I will be collecting data from co-actors and peripheral actors. Co-actors, those who are responsible formally and members of quality assurance committees in the university. Peripheral actors do not have a formal responsibility, but together I can expose the reality. Sample size is 40. I will do observations, participant observations, and document reviews as well. As you can see in my slide, the unit of analysis is individual because I'm looking at moral perspectives of the actors. Time horizon is cross-sectional because I'm going to conduct this study while quality assurance review is ongoing. I will use thematic analysis introduced by Brown and Clark. I will go for 6-step analysis, and to add to the rigor of the data analysis, I will use retroduction and retrodiction principles introduced by critical realism philosophy. That is, you move back and forth with theoretical data during the retroduction process, and retrodiction process, you do cross-case analysis to add to the rigor of the research. The novelty I'm bringing with this.
And if you carefully go through her research, she clearly mentioned her idiot guide, particularly the research idea, research question, and the methodology. You can see how she linked with the different kind of theories, because if you compare with this study with the undergraduate study, you can see some kind of a advanced way that she approached in this way. Particularly if you compare with the previous undergraduate presentation that we have shown to you, you can compare with that one. Now she's moving to the basically 2 key questions related with this.
This research is explanation of compliance towards policies or reforms from moral perspectives. So what is the need of doing this research? We have examples with our inauguration speeches as well. Policy making can be made more effective. To be very particular, Quality Assurance Council would be able to design effective quality assurance system enforcement mechanisms. Universities as implementing agencies can reflect back and channel their resources to meaningful ways of executing quality assurance system. Policy and the impacts, outcome of the policy can be effectively linked. I believe this is an eye-opener for the policymakers as well as implementers. Theoretically, I will be contributing to the institutional studies by producing actor morality to analyze institutional behavior. Methodologically, I will be contributing to the critical realism methodological principles because empirical studies are scant, and I will add rigor to the qualitative research methodology. Empirically, this will be a new way of looking at quality assurance system and symbolic compliance in the higher education sector. I will develop collaborations with the Quality Assurance Council of the University Grants Commission, which is essential, and I have already developed contacts and participated in some review meetings as well, and the conference especially. Ethics, this consists of sensitive information, so anonymity will be strictly protected. Target journals, Journal of Higher Education Policy and Management, Journal of Policy and Society. Being a developing country, during this pandemic, it is really important to use our resources effectively. Developed countries can learn.
Stop that one. That is a latter part of this presentation. You can see under the other consideration. First, she mentioned about the contribution. She analyzed the contribution through the theoretical, methodological, and empirical. Under the other consideration, you have to think about what kind of journal that you are going to publish, because the publication, your research output is you are trying to communicate, your research findings with some interested parties. That also you have to consider what kind of journal that you are targeting. When you are planning your research at the planning stage, this is pitching research framework is a kind of a research planning work you are doing at the early stage. Even though at that stage also you have to think about what kind of a journal that you are going to publish your work. That is most important element in this template. Even though this is a 2-page document, 1,000 words, and only the few items, but don't forget, you are trying to communicate with someone who knows the subject matter well. That is the major assumption Robert Puff make in India. You are not going to communicate your research idea with the layman. Okay, you are not going to communicate with the layman. It clearly mentioned you are going to communicate your research idea with your supervisor, or maybe the peer, or maybe the interested party who knows the subject matter well. I think that's enough for the local experience. We share, Professor Atula, the undergraduate level and the postgraduate level experiences with them. I think this is a awareness session. You get some idea about the pitching research framework practices in the Sri Lankan context. Professor Atula, would you like to say something?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure. Those who are not familiar with this framework, I'm sure they got some idea about the framework, even though it is 1-page kind of, 2-page kind of document, and a lot of reading and hard work going into that particular aspect. That's why we normally call it is, it's challenge that framework, challenge the novice researchers, and they tend to think about the overall aspect about their research. Okay, so it's a very good tool to plan your research, and especially as Professor Wasantha highlighted, remember that you are going to communicate your research idea with the expert in the field. So for that, actually, you are using this template. Basically, it may be your supervisors, principal and co-supervisors, and other experts in the field. So you have to be very carefully, justify all aspects, even key papers, why you have selected key papers, and on what condition you are justifying the ranking, the impact factor, and so many others in citation and everything that you have to show whenever you are selecting. That give itself how you must approach into the developing into your initial framework. I'm sure as an initial session, the Professor Wasantha, this is enough. We'll have another information session and Q&A session a little later. And we will let you know those days in future, in due course.
Now we